Hey, welcome to the Financing Study Abroad 101 session. My name is Gayla Jenkins. I work in the Financial Aid Department. I work specifically with students who study abroad.
And my name is Allie Swenson. I am a study abroad coordinator in the Center for International Education.
Okay, so today what we're going to go over is financial aid and how it works when you study abroad, the Wisconsin Study Abroad Grant, scholarships. We'll cover the study abroad costs and the budgets, the posting of your study abroad fees, the confirmation process. We'll go over some of the forms that we use, and then we'll mention some additional funding ideas, and then we'll wrap it up with a Q&A. So the first step, whether you're going abroad or whether you're staying here, is to apply for the FAFSA. Stands for Free Application for Federal Student Aid, and you can do that online at fafsa.gov. If you're looking at a semester-long or an academic year program, you definitely have to meet with a study abroad coordinator to plan your program. And if you're looking at a non-UWM sponsored program, then you would work with a specific coordinator in the study abroad office. At this time, that person is Ramona Washington. And when we work with study abroad and financial aid, we work with budgets, and that's also your cost of attendance. So we use COA, or cost of attendance. That's important because that determines how much financial aid you would be able to get. That's the maximum amount of financial aid. And by financial aid, I mean scholarships, grants, loans, any type of resource that you're getting to help cover those costs. So again, that's the maximum that you can receive in financial aid. Your financial aid award, however, is going to be based on your expected family contribution, which is the index number that you get when you apply for the FAFSA application. The EFC is important because it helps us to determine whether or not you're going to qualify for need-based financial aid. So we calculate need by taking your cost of attendance and then subtracting out, or your budget, subtracting out your EFC, and that gives us your need number. Need-based financial aid would include the Wisconsin Study Abroad Grant, the Federal Pell Grant, Wisconsin Grant, and then federal subsidized loans. So those, again, are need-based financial aid programs. This is a chart that shows how much a student may borrow in the Federal Student Loan Program. The amount that a student can borrow will depend on two things: the dependency status and the year in school. So for example, a dependent student who's a junior or senior can borrow up to $7,500 per year in the Federal Student Loan Program. And just a side note, in terms of dependency status, your dependency status is determined by your age. So as long as you're under age 24, you'd be considered a dependent student. That's regardless of whether you live with your parents. That's regardless of whether they claim you on their taxes. If you're under age 24, generally you're considered a dependent student. So again, if you're a junior or senior dependent student, you could borrow $7,500 in the Federal Student Loan Program. And in addition to the annual loan limit of $7,500, you have an aggregate loan limit. So the aggregate loan limit would be the limit that you can borrow for your entire undergraduate career. For dependent students, that aggregate loan amount is $31,000. For independent students, the annual limit goes to $12,500, where the aggregate loan limit goes to $57,500. Now, you may be in a situation where you're a junior or senior and you did not get offered the entire $7,500 in student loans for the year. That could be because you're close to that $31,000 maximum, or if you're an independent student, you're close to that $57,500 maximum. And you may not have gotten them in the entire $12,500. So just be aware of those loan limitations. When you've already been awarded the annual loan limit, there are other loan options. Graduate students, they have an annual limit of $20,500. They're always considered independent students, but their aggregate loan limit is $138,500. There are additional loan options for each of these scenarios. A very common question that I get is, will I get more in financial aid because I'm studying abroad? The answer is yes and no. Yes, because we do consider your budget or your cost of attendance, and we do our best to award you enough financial aid to cover all of those costs. No, in a sense that we can't always increase the funding from specific programs such as the Pell Grant or the Wisconsin Grant because you're studying abroad. So those types of funds they have limitations, just like the loan program that I mentioned. they have limitations. So even though a student may be studying abroad and their costs may be higher than if they were staying here, we can't always increase those funds. However, keep in mind there are scholarships that are meant only for students who are studying abroad and are not available to students who are not studying abroad. So in that sense, we try and help a student get awarded up to all of their costs. So a lot of times too, students who can get additional loans from parent loans, we can offer Parent Plus loans to help cover all of your costs if you're going on a study abroad program. Graduate students also have options in this respect, so we'll talk about those a little later. And most financial aid that you're awarded can be used for study abroad. That would be Pell Grants, Wisconsin Grants, the direct loans. Those are the loans that I referred to in the chart. There are a couple exceptions, though, that I do want to point out. The tuition waivers are specifically for programs that are exchange programs. So there are several different study abroad programs, and Allie will go over those in a little bit. But for exchange programs, you're charged tuition as if you were attending UWM courses. You're charged regular tuition for exchange programs. But for study abroad programs that are not exchange programs, you're not technically charged tuition, so you wouldn't be able to use your tuition waiver. Tuition waivers are common for students who are NCAA athletes or veterans, where they get their tuition waived. So just keep that in mind. If you're on an exchange program, that's not a problem. You can certainly use your tuition waiver for those programs. But if you're on a study abroad program that's not an exchange type program, you're charged a comprehensive program fee. And so you're not technically tuition, so you wouldn't be able to use a tuition waiver in that case. Also, some scholarships are very restrictive. They may have a restriction that you can only use the scholarship for tuition. And so you may want to check with your donor, and see if it's okay to use a scholarship for study abroad. Of course, the scholarships that are on the study abroad websites and the ones that we are promoting, they definitely can be used for study abroad purposes. In terms of the financial aid options, again, the loans I want to go over briefly. We have the Federal Direct Stafford loans, and those limits, they have limitations. We also have the Federal Direct Parent Plus loan. Those are loans that parents of dependent students can take out. So they can cover those to help cover all of your costs. If they're approved, you automatically can cover all of your costs. The Federal Direct Graduate Plus loans, those are loans for graduate students who may have already exhausted out their annual limits. If they decide to study abroad, they can certainly look into the Graduate Plus loan as an option. Private loans are an option. Sometimes, parents of dependent students are just not willing or able to take out a Parent Plus loan. In that case, students will often take out private loans. There are also grants. So grants are funds that you don't have to repay. The Wisconsin Study Abroad Grant is for Wisconsin residents. It's the UWM sponsor. It's for UWM sponsored programs only. And for students working on their first undergraduate degree program. So that Wisconsin Study Abroad Grant, we'll talk about that a little later as well. Scholarships is pretty much an individual search, so I recommend that students take some time out and look through the Study Abroad website, look through the financial aid website, as well as any other websites where you can get scholarship information. The Benjamin Gilman, I do want to mention that. That's for Pell Grant recipients only. It's available. It's not available during the winter term, but it's available during all of the other terms. And the Diversity Scholarship is usually available, but right now it's on hold. So at the time of this recording, it's on hold. But you definitely want to check out the Study Abroad website to see when that scholarship will become available again. There are two websites listed here, the UWM Study Abroad website, where there's a list of different scholarships that you can look into to help finance your study abroad program. There's also at the bottom there the financial aid website. You can look into scholarships there. Some of them are specifically for study abroad, not very many, but a lot of them are general scholarships, which you still can use for study abroad purposes as long as there's not that restriction there that I mentioned earlier. I briefly want to go over maintaining financial aid eligibility just because it becomes important in a couple of cases, especially when a student is near their senior year and they plan to go abroad in senior year. I want to bring your attention to two things. We monitor academic progress. By law, we have to monitor every student's academic progress. We monitor two things. We monitor the pace at which a student is completing their degree and then the time frame. So after every semester, we're checking the pace at which a student is completing the degree. In other words, we're checking to make sure that they've completed at least 66.67% of all of their attempted credits. How we do this is after the semester, we have a computer program that runs to check grades. So if you study abroad, your grades may or may not be reported at the time we check for grades. So if you get an email from financial aid saying that you did not meet SAP pace, that's what I'm referring to. So don't panic. It's just a timing issue more than likely. Your grades may not be posted by the time we run the report, and maybe they'll come in later. We run the program several times a week, so once the grades are posted, you'll be back at good standing. So don't panic. There's also the time frame that we have to measure. We measure time frame in terms of the number of credits a student attempts. So for most UWM programs, you're only required to complete 120, 130 credits. So this usually is not a problem. Now, where it does become a problem is if you have lots of transfer credits that you transferred over to UWM and they don't count toward your current degree program. We count the transfer credits against the 180 credit limit, so you may be close if you're a junior or senior. So I just recommend that you look at your unofficial transcript to see how many credits you've attempted so far. You don't want to be abroad and then find out that you're close to that maximum, because you would become ineligible for financial aid at that point. Also, where it becomes an issue is if you changed majors quite often, and then now your current major, you're not able to use those credits that you took earlier. You just something to keep in mind. So you don't want to get the email. You don't want to panic. Always reach out to me if you get an email like that. I can help you work through that. Thing to remember: just make sure your grades are reported as soon as possible, and look out for the attempted credit number that you're at. In terms of deadlines, the FAFSA application is a very general application. You can apply for that FAFSA up to 2 weeks before the end of the semester, the spring semester. I don't recommend doing that. I recommend applying as soon as possible. For example, right now, we're approaching October 1st. October 1st of every year, you're able to apply for the FAFSA for the upcoming year. So for October 1st, 2020, you can already start applying for the financial aid year, which is 2021-2022. So that would be study abroad programs that begin in fall of 2021 and also spring of 2022. So again, apply early. That's the basic rule. Apply as soon as possible. If you're applying for the Benjamin Gilman Scholarship or the Study Abroad Grant, you definitely want to apply for the FAFSA before the deadlines for these two programs. In terms of posting of your study abroad fees, your grants, any additional loans that you're going to be getting, we're going to be processing those shortly before you leave for your program. So we'll be working with estimates quite a bit. If you email me, I can send you an estimate of how much financial aid you're going to be eligible for, because again, by the time, we want to work with estimates, just because we're going to be posting your actual awards close to when you're leaving for your program. In terms of disbursement of the financial aid, by law, we can't disperse aid any sooner than 10 days before the start of UWM semester. And so if you have a program where starting before we disperse financial aid, we do have a short-term loan available for students that's sponsored by the Bursar's office. So keep that in mind. If you run into that situation, email me and we can work on the application together. If you have a request for me to complete forms or write letters of verification for you, or complete forms or scholarships, I'm more than happy to do that. I do ask that you give me 7 to 10 business days to complete those. I don't usually complete those, although right now it may take me that long to do that, but I usually don't take that long. And just make sure you have all of your financial aid forms in so that I can complete those forms, and I usually will return those to you via email. Study abroad grant application is completely online. When you apply to a study abroad program, you should be prompted to apply for the study abroad grant. It's a very simple and quick process. You would just click on the apply now link, indicate which term you're wanting the grant for, and then you're done. You're gonna confirm that you can understand the eligibility requirements, and then you're done. I do want to point out though, if you're looking to apply for the grant for a a short-term program, that would be a summer or a winter program, you would have to be full-time, enrolled full-time for the previous semester. So for example, for summer of 2021, you'd have to be enrolled full-time for the spring 2021 semester. So at least 12 credits in the previous semester for short-term programs. Also for the summer, you'd have to be enrolled for at least 6 credits. Not all of those will have to be study abroad related. So you can take a 3-credit study abroad, 3-credit regular course, and you would meet that half-time requirement. So just some additional notes there for the study abroad grant. This is how it's going to look when you apply for the program. You click on that little apply now rectangle there. The eligibility rules will come up, and then you click to digitally sign that, and then you're done. So it's a very quick process there.
All right, thanks, Gail. So now we're going to talk a little bit about study abroad budgets and the different types of programs that we have. So for every single program that we're offering at UWM, we have a budget associated with that program, and it can look a little bit different depending on the program page that you're looking at. You'll either see it as a tab for program costs, or you'll see a hyperlink by the term in which you want to study abroad. We get a common question of how much does study abroad cost, what's the average, and the answer is it depends. So it depends on the type of program that you're going on, as well as how long you're going for. And so with, for example, exchange programs like Gayla mentioned, you will pay UWM tuition for that type of program. It's also an arrangement where we have students from foreign universities who come here and we send students there. We also work with providers or direct enroll type universities. Those are considered non-exchange programs. Faculty-led programs are where UWM faculty takes students abroad as a group and you do things together and earn credit that way. You're also welcome to attend non-UWM programs, so ones that aren't affiliated with UWM, and we'll still work with you to make sure your credit gets transferred back. And we are also offering virtual programs now as well. And so all your program fees will be posted to your account, and we're just about to get into that. But we will keep you updated as we go along in the process of applying and getting accepted into your program about what the cost will be, keeping in mind that, like Gail mentioned earlier, a lot of what we're working with is estimates for the time being. So to go over a couple different types of program budgets we have, this is an example of a semester-long exchange program. So on our website, every program is broken down into 2 categories. We have a billable subtotal and then either a non-billable or an additional fee type of subtotal here. And so the billable means it gets posted to your PAWS account, and the non-billable means that it's more independent costs for you to pay on your own. So for example, for the exchange program, like we mentioned before, you would be paying UWM tuition for this type of program without having to pay set fees. Every student is also required to pay an administrative fee and be enrolled in international health insurance. And so this creates your billable subtotal. Every student is also required to submit a $100 application fee. It shows us you're serious about attending a study abroad program, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. And then the rest of these estimates here are just that, they are estimates. So we may say that you might spend $1,200 for airfare, when in fact you might find a flight for like $900. It really just depends on what you're able to find. With exchange programs as well, these tend to be more independent style programs. So you would be responsible for finding your own housing and food and things like that. And we start estimating this on your behalf to give you an idea of how much this might cost. That's not saying you're going to be left totally on your own to figure out this kind of stuff. You have your study abroad coordinators to help you with this, and a lot of times there are, for example, like dorms near the campus that you're going to. We've even built in the cost of how much you might expect to pay for a passport or even extra gifts or extra touring you might do. And so then we have the grand total of what your total cost might be when you're abroad. And again, all of this is used to determine your cost of attendance for financial aid purposes. For a non-exchange program, this is also a semester long. We'll see that the categories are still broken down into 2 areas, but then the line items individually are a little bit different. So again, for a non-exchange program, you're not charged UWM tuition. Instead, you're charged a comprehensive program fee, including academic expenses. You also might notice that now housing is not listed in the lower category, and that food is obviously much lower estimated than it was in the previous program. And that's because it looks like this program might have those things included, at least some type of housing, and then maybe a partial or even full meal plan. And you can see that there's a definite difference between the subtotals as well as the total. So for the subtotals, you'd be paying more through directly your PAWS account, and your estimated costs are a little bit lower. So people will look at this final total for a non-exchange program and say, well, obviously I'm going to attend an exchange program because that's much cheaper. But you have to think about what you're getting when you're paying this extra fee. So this is all billed up front, so that way you just have to show up abroad, and a lot of things are already taken care of for you. Some of the providers we work with also include things like airport pickup or excursions or even local transportation passes and things like that. So keeping those things in mind as you're looking at different programs. Finally, we have a faculty-led program, and this one looks a little bit different. We have a minimum program cost and a maximum program cost. And that's because with faculty-led programs, we don't know how many students are going to be attending the program yet. And potentially, the more students who go, the less it costs per student. And again, because some of these are usually short-term programs, housing is going to be included, partial meals at least are going to be included, as well as some in-country transportation. Again, you'll see the administrative fees and insurance, just like the other programs, are included. And then the best way to determine, regardless of what type of program you're looking at, is trying to figure out how much you might be spending for these costs here. And the best way to do that is to budget your life for a month. Figure out what your personal costs are just in general in Milwaukee or wherever you're residing. So how much are you spending on rent or utilities, gas for your car, food, entertainment, and that'll help give you an idea of how much you might spend abroad as well. So whenever we post fees to your account, it will have an essay next to it for study abroad. So we've already talked about the different types of ways we charge, but these will be the categories that you'll be charged in for the different types of programs. So exchange programs, you'll pay tuition, administrative fees, and insurance. Non-exchange, comprehensive program fee, administrative fees, and insurance. The additional piece here will be differential fees. So this is required by UW system for us to distinguish the different rates between a typical resident undergraduate student and then a non-resident or a graduate student. It's just kind of like when you might pay tuition at a different rate as well. The difference is that we are not, the only thing you're getting additionally charged is $200. We're not, that's the only increase you'll see from a typical resident undergraduate cost. So just keeping that in mind, if you are a non-resident or graduate, you can always contact our office for more information as well. Non-UW programs are not ours, so we will charge you an administrative fee and insurance just to make sure you're covered and then to help process your grades and your transcript, but you'll pay whoever you're working with directly. And then as for virtual programs, it kind of depends on what program you're going through. So at minimum, you'll be charged an administrative fee, but then depending on the affiliation that if we have an affiliation with the school or the program that you're going through, we'll process it as if it's the same as a non-exchange direct enroll type program. If we don't have an affiliation, we'll treat it like a non-UWM program where you pay them directly and then we work with you on the back end. So when a student applies to a program and they get accepted, you get about a week to decide if you're actually going to attend that program. And so this is where that $100 application fee comes into play. And so if you apply for a program and you get accepted, you get a week and you say, you know what, I just can't make this work. That's fine. The only thing you forfeit at that point is that $100 application fee because it's technically withdrawing from the course. If you go into your application and you confirm for your program, you say, yes, I'm going, and then something comes up, it gets a little bit trickier because we've already started to pay our vendors on your behalf. And so making sure, this isn't meant to be scary, but just before you click the button in your application to commit to your program, make sure that you're financially ready to commit to the program. As for any type of late fees, as long as you're turning in your materials on time and you're being communicative with your coordinators, you shouldn't have to worry about these. We'll go over a couple optional forms real quick as well. So the first is the financial aid authorization form. So if you are receiving financial aid and you don't have this form completed, your financial aid is automatically distributed only to tuition or the academic expenses portion of your program. If you fill this form out and turn it into the bursar's office, it allows your financial aid not only to tuition or academic expenses, but also the faculty expenses if you're going on one of those types of programs, the student expenses, and the administrative fees. So it allows your financial aid to be dispersed more widely. Other forms, we have the FERPA. So FERPA means that your academic records are your business and nobody else's. So sometimes we get parents or spouses who call and they want to know what their student is taking for classes, what their financial aid package looks like, where they're living. And we can't tell them that information without your permission. And so that would be an electronic document that is completed in your application once you've been accepted into the program. Same for the power of attorney, except that is a physical piece of paper. So power of attorney means that someone is able to legally sign or act on your behalf. So if you need to sign a lease for a new apartment or to have money dispersed into your account, this person, whoever you're assigning power to, can do that for you if this form is signed. So that's, again, a physical piece of paper you'll be able to print from your application. It needs to be notarized, so you need to make sure that the person you're giving power to gets the original form, and then CIE gets a copy, just so we know that the exchange took place. So there's no due date for those. They're valid for a year once they're completed. As for additional funding ideas, the money is out there. You just need to start looking for it. So in addition to normal scholarships and grants, think about asking your professors or departments that you're involved in, or fellow students, or anyone you know who may have studied abroad in the past. Work with your study abroad coordinators. If you're in the community as part of a local choir, or if you're interning, or if you volunteer somewhere, what you're doing is just asking for opportunities, and the worst that people can do is say they don't know of anything. We've even had a lot of students who will participate in crowdfunding as well. So the opportunities are out there, and it's just a matter of being creative and starting to plan early. And if you'd like to discuss this more with someone in CIE, all you have to do is email overseas@uwm.edu. And once again, if you have any questions for us, our email addresses are there, and you're welcome to contact us at any time. Gayla, is there anything else you'd like to add? No? All right, so that'll be the end of our presentation here, and thank you for watching.